The eviction notice was pink. I don't know why that detail mattered, but it did. Pink like a valentine, like something that should have been romantic instead of a death sentence printed in bold letters. Final notice, 21 days to vacate. I folded it into smaller and smaller squares until my fingers went numb. Sitting in the break room of Aurelio's, where the smell of expensive food I couldn't afford made my empty stomach clench. 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to come up with 4 months of back rent, or everything I'd been clinging to would disappear. Marco, the floor manager, stuck his head through the doorway. Mr. Santoro wants to see you. His office. Now, my heart dropped into my shoes. Luca Santoro, the owner, the man I'd seen exactly twice in 8 months of working here, both times from a distance. Men like him didn't summon servers unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. Did I do something? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Marco's expression was unreadable. Just go. Don't keep him waiting. The elevator to the top floor required a key card Marco provided with shaking hands, like he was handing me passage to another world. The doors opened onto a corridor of glass and steel, and at the end, an office that overlooked the entire city. Luca Santoro stood with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. Even from behind, he commanded attention, broad shoulders in a black suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Dark hair perfectly styled, an aura of control that seemed to bend the air around him. Sit, he said in English, without turning around, and I obeyed before my brain could process the command. He ended his call and finally faced me. The photographs I'd glimpsed online hadn't prepared me for the reality. Sharp features that looked carved from marble, dark eyes that assessed me with unnerving precision, and a mouth that seemed designed to deliver verdicts rather than smiles. Maya Reyes, he said, my name sounding different in his slight accent. 26 years old. Bachelor's degree in literature you never finished. Father passed 3 years ago from cancer. No living relatives. Currently 3 months behind on rent and approximately $40,000. In debt between medical bills and student loans. He sat across from me, steepling his fingers. Did I miss anything? Horror flooded through me. How do I make it my business to know everything about my employees? He slid a folder across the pristine desk. Especially ones I'm about to make an offer to. I stared at the folder like it might bite me. What kind of offer? The kind that solves your financial problems permanently. He leaned back, studying me with those unsettling eyes. I need a wife, and you need money. I'm proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement. The world tilted. I'm sorry, what? I have a business merger pending with traditional Italian investors. They're old-world, family-oriented men who refuse to conduct serious business with unmarried men under 40. They see it as instability. His tone suggested he found this ridiculous but wasn't willing to fight it. I need a wife for 6 weeks. You need $100,000. The math is simple. 100,000. The number echoed in my skull like a prayer and a curse. You want me to marry you? For money? My voice cracked on the absurdity. I want you to pretend to marry me. There's a difference. He opened the folder, revealing a contract thick enough to stop a bullet. Everything is outlined here. You'll move into my penthouse, attend business dinners, play the devoted spouse. In return, you'll receive $50,000 up front and $50,000 when the contract expires. This is insane. This is business. He withdrew a velvet box from his desk drawer and opened it to reveal a platinum wedding band set with a single perfect diamond. You'll wear this until you've earned every dollar. You'll learn to respond to my touch without flinching. You'll convince my family, my business partners, and most importantly, my brother, that you're desperately in love with me. His brother. Something in the way he said it sent ice through my veins. Why me? I whispered. For the first time, something almost human flickered in his expression. Because you're drowning, and drowning people are convincing. Desperation has an authenticity money can't buy. I looked at the contract, the ring, the man offering me salvation wrapped in deception. 21 days until eviction. 6 weeks of pretending. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Where do I sign? Luca's smile was sharp as broken glass. Good girl. I signed my name in 7 places, my hand shaking with each stroke. When I finished, Luca slid the ring across the desk. I put it on, and it fit perfectly like he'd known it would, like he'd measured me for this trap long before I'd walked through his door. We're done here, he said, already turning back to his phone. My driver will collect you tomorrow at 8. Bring nothing you can't carry. Your old life ends tonight. I stood on trembling legs, clutching my new marriage contract like a life raft, and made it halfway to the elevator before his voice stopped me cold. Maya, I turned. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. My brother Nico arrives tomorrow. He'll be the hardest to convince. His eyes glittered with something dangerous. Don't disappoint me, wife. The elevator doors closed on his face, and I realized I'd just sold 6 weeks of my life to a man whose dark eyes held secrets that could destroy me. And the worst part? I'd do it again. The penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows on every wall made me feel like I was suspended in the sky, exposed to the city's glittering judgment. Everything was sharp angles and cold surfaces. Leather, steel, glass, a space designed for someone who'd forgotten how to be soft. Your room is here. Luca pushed open a door to reveal a bedroom larger than my entire apartment had been. King-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than my security deposit. An ensuite bathroom with a tub I could drown in. A closet already filled with clothes in my exact size, tags still attached. How did you— I'm thorough. He moved to the window, hands in his pockets. You'll sleep here. I'm across the hall. The door locks from the inside if it makes you feel safer. It should have. It didn't. We need to rehearse, he continued. All business. Nico is suspicious by nature. He'll test us immediately. Luca pulled out his phone and displayed a document. We met 7 months ago at a charity gala. I was a donor. You were serving. I was immediately taken with your grace under pressure. That's a cliché. Clichés work because they're believable. His eyes lifted to mine, pinning me in place. We dated for 4 months before I proposed at sunset on my yacht. Small ceremony, immediate family only, because you preferred intimate gatherings. Honeymoon in Positano for 2 weeks. I tried to memorize details I'd never lived, places I'd never been. What if he asks things you can't prepare me for? Then you defer to me. Look at me before answering. Let me control the narrative. He crossed the space between us, and I forced myself not to retreat. Stand up. I obeyed, hating how easily the command came from him, how naturally I followed it. Luca's hand settled on my waist, and I flinched. His jaw tightened. That's what will expose us. Wives don't flinch when their husbands touch them. I'm not used to. Get used to it. But his grip gentled, his thumb tracing small circles against the fabric of my shirt. Close your eyes. What? Close them. His voice dropped lower, almost hypnotic. And breathe. I did. His other hand came up to rest at the small of my back, drawing me closer until I could feel the heat of him through our clothes. Smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made my head swim. This is what married looks like, he murmured. Comfortable. Familiar. Like you belong here. His hand slid up my spine and I shivered involuntarily. Better. When you stop thinking about it, your body remembers how to accept touch. We stood like that for several heartbeats, and I felt his pulse against my palm where my hand had somehow landed on his chest. Too intimate. Too real. The elevator chimed. Luca released me immediately, stepping back as footsteps approached. Showtime, he said, his expression shuddering into something cold and controlled. The man who entered was younger than Luca by a few years, with the same dark coloring but softer features. Where Luca was all sharp edges and controlled violence, this man wore charm like armor. His smile was warm, his eyes calculating. Fratello, he said, embracing Luca with the kind of affection that felt like a weapon. And this must be the mysterious bride, Nico. Luca's hand found my waist again, proprietary and sure. This is Maya, my wife. Nico's gaze traveled over me slowly, assessing, measuring, finding me wanting. Enchanted. He took my hand and brought it to his lips, his eyes never leaving mine. Luca failed to mention how beautiful you are. He's modest, I managed. Modest. Nico laughed, releasing my hand. That's a word no one's ever used to describe my brother. He moved to the bar, pouring 3 glasses of wine without asking. Tell me, Maya, how does a waitress from Brooklyn end up married to Luca Santoro? It's quite the fairy tale. The way he said waitress made it sound like an insult. We met at a charity gala, Nico interrupted, handing me a glass. Yes, I read the announcement. Very romantic. Very sudden. He settled onto the leather sofa, studying us like a predator watching prey. What I'm curious about is the details. The things that don't make it into press releases. Luca's hand tightened on my waist. Warning. Such as? I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. Nico's smile widened. Such as what my brother looks like when he sleeps. Since you share a bed, of course. The question hung in the air like a blade. I felt Luca's body tense beside me, felt the trap closing around us with teeth we hadn't seen coming. I started, but Luca cut me off. Maya's tired from the move. We'll continue this conversation over dinner. His tone left no room for argument. 8 o'clock. Don't be late, brother. Nico stood slowly, his expression unreadable. Of course. I wouldn't miss it. He paused at the elevator. By the way, congratulations on the marriage. I'm sure it will last exactly as long as it needs to. The doors closed on his knowing smile. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Then Luca pulled me onto the balcony, where the wind stole our words and security cameras couldn't reach. He knows, Luca said, his voice dangerously soft, his hands gripping the railing hard enough to whiten his knuckles, or he suspects. Either way, he's going to test you. He turned to face me, and fear flickered behind his controlled exterior. And if you fail, everything falls apart. Nico started his campaign the next morning. I woke to find him in the kitchen, making espresso like he owned the place. He wore a suit that matched Luca's expensive taste, but looked softer somehow, more approachable. The smile he gave me was warm poison. Buongiorno, cognata, sister-in-law. Luca's already at the office. He asked me to keep you company. Luca hadn't mentioned that. I clutched my robe tighter, painfully aware I was alone with a man designed to dismantle me. That's not necessary. But I insist. He slid a cup across the marble counter. We're family now. We should get to know each other. His eyes traveled over me slowly. Tell me, does Luca still have nightmares about the Marchetti job? Does he wake up screaming? I didn't know what the Marchetti job was. Didn't know if Luca even had nightmares. He sleeps fine, I lied, taking the espresso to buy time. Interesting. Nico moved closer. Because after what happened in Naples, most men would never sleep soundly again. He waited, watching for recognition that wouldn't come. But perhaps marriage has changed him. Perhaps you're his cure. The mockery in his voice made my spine stiffen. Perhaps you should ask him yourself. Oh, I will. He reached past me for the sugar, deliberately invading my space. But it's more fun watching you improvise. You're good at it. I'll give you that. The devoted wife routine is almost convincing. Almost. The word hung between us like a verdict. The penthouse door opened. Luca entered, and his entire body language shifted when he saw us, shoulders squaring, jaw tightening, eyes going dark with something territorial. Nico. It wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. Just getting acquainted with my new sister. Nico stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. She makes excellent coffee. Get out, Luca, I started. Now, Luca's voice dropped to something lethal, and Nico's charming mask slipped for just a second, revealing something colder underneath. Of course, I'll see you both at dinner tonight. I'm bringing a gift. Nico's gaze slid to me. Something special for the bride. When the elevator doors closed, Luca turned on me. What did he ask you? About nightmares, about Naples, about... My voice cracked. I didn't know what to say. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked uncertain. Come with me. He led me to his bedroom, darker than mine, more austere, dominated by a massive bed that looked unused. He closed the door and began unbuttoning his shirt. My heart stuttered. "What are you?" "He's going to ask you about my body," Luca said flatly, shrugging off the shirt. "About scars, marks, things a wife would know." He turned, revealing his back. I gasped. Scars crisscrossed his skin like a roadmap of violence. A cigarette burn on his left shoulder blade. What looked like a knife wound along his ribs. And lower, near his hip, the puckered evidence of a bullet. "Memorize them," he commanded, his voice carefully controlled. "He'll test you again." I moved closer without thinking, my fingers hovering over the burn mark. How Marchetti interrogation. 3 years ago. His muscles jumped under my touch. The knife was his son. The bullet was my own stupidity. Turning my back on someone I thought was loyal, my hands settled against the scar near his spine, and I felt him inhale sharply. "Swan? Belt?" My father. When I was 12 and stupid enough to question his authority, he glanced over his shoulder, his eyes meeting mine. "Still think this marriage is the worst decision you've ever made?" I traced the raised tissue slowly, carefully, learning the landscape of his survival. "How did you live through all of this?" Luca turned, catching my hand against his bare chest, where I could feel his heart racing beneath my palm. His other hand came up to cup my face, tilting it until I had nowhere to look but into those dark, dangerous eyes. "The same way you're surviving now," he said quietly. "By refusing to die." The words hit like a confession. We stood there, my hand pressed against his heartbeat, his thumbs stroking my cheekbone, breathing the same air in a space too intimate for people pretending to be married. "Luca," I whispered, not sure what I was asking. His gaze dropped to my mouth, and for one breathless moment, I thought he might kiss me. Then his phone buzzed, shattering whatever spell had woven itself between us. He stepped back abruptly, grabbing his shirt. "Dinner is at 7, wear the red dress." "And Maya," he paused at the door. "When Nico asks about my scars tonight, and he will make sure you get every detail right. Why is he doing this?" Luca's expression hardened. "Because proving I'm lying is the only power he has left over me, and he'll do whatever it takes to win." The door closed behind him, leaving me alone with the ghost of his touch still burning on my skin, and the terrifying realization that learning his scars might be the least dangerous part of this arrangement. Learning to want him, that was the real threat. The restaurant was the kind of place where silence cost extra. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, waiters who moved like ghosts. I wore the red dress Luca had chosen, silk that clung to every curve, a neckline that suggested without revealing. His hand rested on the small of my back as we entered, warm and possessive. "Smile," he murmured against my ear. "You're madly in love with me, remember?" I smiled. It felt like a mask. The Italian investors were exactly what I had expected. Silver-haired men in expensive suits who assessed me like livestock. Nico sat across from us, radiating charm, playing the devoted brother while his eyes calculated angles of attack. "So Maya," one of the investors, Signor Ferretti said in heavily accented English, "Luca tells us you studied literature. What was your focus?" "Romantic poetry," I answered, the lie smooth as glass. "We'd rehearsed this." "Keats, mostly. I wrote my thesis on Ode to a Nightingale." Ah, beauty and death intertwined. How fitting. Nico raised his wine glass. "Much like marriage, no?" Luca's hand tightened on my thigh under the table. Warning. The dinner progressed like a performance. I laughed at appropriate moments, touched Luca's arm with practiced affection. Played the role so well, I almost believed it myself. The investors seemed convinced. Then Nico reached for the wine. "A toast," he announced, standing, "to my brother and his beautiful bride." It happened so fast. The glass tipped, dark red wine cascading across the white tablecloth, splashing across my dress like blood. I gasped, jumping up as the liquid soaked through silk. "Madonna, I'm so sorry." Nico was immediately at my side, napkins in hand, dabbing at the stain on my chest. His fingers lingered too long, pressed too hard. How clumsy of me. It's fine, I managed, stepping back. No, you must clean up. And the bathroom is just down the hall. He gestured, his smile apologetic and entirely false. I insist. Luca started to rise, but Senor Ferretti caught his attention with a question about shipping routes. I saw the calculation flash across Luca's face. Leave me alone with Nico, or insult the investors by appearing possessive and untrusting. Go, he said quietly, his eyes locked on mine. I'll be right there. The hallway stretched long and empty, my heels clicking against marble. I'd almost reached the bathroom when Nico's hand closed around my elbow. Not so fast. He spun me against the wall, his body blocking any escape. Up close I could smell expensive scotch on his breath, see the cold calculation behind his charming facade. You're good, he admitted, one hand settling on my waist. Better than I expected. But you're still not good enough. Let me go. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Real wives don't flinch when their husbands touch them. His fingers tightened. You flinch every time Luca gets close. I see it. The hesitation, the fear. You're playing a part, and you're terrified he'll figure out you don't actually want him. You're wrong. Am I? He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. Maybe you just need practice. Maybe what you need is a different Santoro. One who knows how to make a woman. Get your hands off my wife. Luca's voice cut through the moment like a blade. He stood at the end of the hallway, and the rage on his face was terrifying. Cold, controlled, lethal. Nico's grip loosened, but didn't release. We were just talking, brother. Now, Luca crossed the distance in 3 strides. Everything happened in fragments. Luca's fists connecting with Nico's jaw. The crack of bone. Nico stumbling back, laughing even as blood filled his mouth. Luca hauling him up by his collar, slamming him against the wall. She's mine, Luca growled, his voice barely human. You don't look at her, you don't touch her. You don't breathe the same air without my permission. The investors, Nico gasped. Fuck the investors. Another punch, brutal and precise. Touch her again and I'll kill you, brother or not. Luca, stop. I grabbed his arm, feeling muscles coiled tight enough to snap. Please. He froze, chest heaving, knuckles bleeding. Slowly he released Nico, who slid down the wall with a smile that was all teeth and blood. There it is, Nico wheezed. The real Luca, violent, possessive, out of control. The investors saw everything, brother. Your merger is dead. Luca didn't look at him. He took my hand, gentle despite the violence still vibrating through him, and led me toward the exit. Behind us I heard Senor Ferretti's voice, sharp with disapproval. Heard chairs scraping, heard everything we'd worked for crumbling. In the car, Luca's knuckles bled onto the leather seats. His jaw was so tight I thought it might shatter. I reached for his damaged hand and he let me take it, let me press my fingers against his racing pulse. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. His voice was raw, scraped clean of control. He needed to learn that you're not his to test. But the merger... I don't care about the merger. He turned to face me, and his eyes held something dangerous and desperate. I care about you. And that's the problem. The penthouse felt different when we returned. Colder. Like the walls knew what had been destroyed tonight. Luca went straight to the bar, pouring scotch with hands that still trembled with residual violence. He downed it in one swallow, poured another, and stared out at the city lights like they held answers. His phone started ringing. He ignored it. It rang again. And again. Answer it, I said quietly. I know who it is. But he picked up on the 4th call, and even from across the room I heard the shouting. Italian words I didn't understand, delivered with a kind of fury that transcended language. Lucas's face remained impassive. Papa, yes, father. More shouting. Low so. I know. Nope, none me importer. Nope, I don't care. The conversation lasted 15 brutal minutes. When it ended, Luca set the phone down with careful precision, like he was afraid of breaking it, or afraid of what he'd break if he didn't control himself. The investors called him, he said flatly. They're pulling out of the merger. They said I'm unstable and unsuited for serious partnership. My father agrees. Luca, he's threatening to remove me from the family business. Says I've embarrassed them. Destroyed years of careful relationship building for... He stopped, jaw working. For a fake wife who wasn't worth it. The words landed like blows. I should go. What? The contract, I forced myself to say. It has a termination clause if I become a liability. I'm clearly a liability now. You can cut your losses, tell everyone it was a mistake. No. The word came out harsh. He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands framing my face with a gentleness that contradicted the violence still simmering in his eyes. You're not leaving, but everything's falling apart. Then let it fall. His thumbs stroked my cheekbones. The contract says you're mine for 6 weeks. We're only at 3. That's not a reason to keep me here. It's the only reason I can admit to. His forehead dropped to mine and I felt him exhale shakily. Don't ask me to let you go, Maya. Not yet. We stood like that, breathing the same air, and I realized the contract had stopped mattering somewhere between his scars and tonight. Somewhere between performance and reality, we'd crossed a line neither of us knew how to uncross. His phone buzzed, a flower delivery notification. He pulled up the image and went perfectly still. Roses, 24 black roses. The card visible in the photo read, "Looking forward to our next conversation." And he's not done, Luca said quietly. He won't be done until he's proven I'm lying. Until he's destroyed everything I've tried to build. Why does he hate you so much? Luca released me, moving back to the window. Because our father loves me more. Because I was given responsibilities Nico thinks he deserves. Because I left the family business to build something clean. And he sees it as betrayal. He laughed bitterly. And now I've lost it anyway. The merger, the investors, my father's respect. All of it gone because I couldn't control myself when he touched you. You were protecting me. I was being selfish. He turned and his expression was raw. Real husbands protect their wives. But this isn't real, is it? I have no right to feel. He stopped. It doesn't matter what I feel. But it did matter. I could see it in the way his hands clenched, in the tension in his shoulders, in the careful distance he maintained like he didn't trust himself to get close. I crossed to him slowly, placed my hand over his heart where it raced beneath expensive fabric. What if it's real for me too? His hand covered mine, pressing it harder against his chest. Don't say that unless you mean it. I mean it. The confession escaped like a secret I'd been keeping from myself. I came here for money, for survival. But somewhere between your scars and tonight, this stopped being about the contract. Luca's control finally cracked. He pulled me against him, not for show, not for practice, and buried his face in my hair. His arms wrapped around me with desperate strength, and I felt him shake. This is insane, he murmured against my temple. I'm destroying everything for something that's supposed to end in 3 weeks. Then maybe we need a new contract. I pulled back enough to see his face. One that doesn't have an expiration date. His eyes searched mine. Maya, the elevator chimed. We sprang apart as if caught doing something forbidden. Luca's expression shuttered immediately, controls slamming back into place. But as he moved to answer whoever had arrived at 2 a.m., his hand found mine and squeezed once. A promise. A question. A beginning that terrified us both. The man who stepped off the elevator wasn't Nico. He was older, silver-haired, with eyes that had seen too much and forgiven too little. Papa Lucas's voice was carefully neutral. His father surveyed the penthouse, then me, with the cold precision of someone calculating value. This is the girl who's cost you everything. Maya, this is my father, Salvatore. Luca moved to stand beside me, his body angled protectively. He was just leaving. Not yet. Salvatore pulled an envelope from his jacket. Nico has extended an invitation. A weekend at his estate in the countryside. Family reconciliation, he calls it. His smile was sharp. You'll both accept, of course. We're busy. You'll accept, Salvatore repeated, and the command in his voice made it clear this wasn't negotiable, or I'll assume you're hiding something. That this marriage is exactly what Nico claims it is. A fraud designed to manipulate investors. The trap was perfect. refuse and confirm suspicions. Accept and walk into whatever Nico had planned. When? Luca asked tightly. This weekend. 3 days. 2 nights. Salvatore moved toward the elevator. Nico assures me he simply wants to know his new sister-in-law better. Surely that's not too much to ask. When the doors closed, Luca's control finally shattered. He swept his arm across the bar, sending glasses crashing to the floor in an explosion of crystal and fury. This is what he does, Luca said through clenched teeth. He isolates, manipulates, controls. And now I have to deliver you straight into his hands. Then we'll be careful. We'll play the part perfectly, you don't understand. He turned, and fear flickered behind his rage. His estate is 2 hours outside the city. No cell service. His security everywhere. It's his territory, his rules, his game. And he's going to use every second to prove we're lying. I thought of Nico's calculating eyes, his invasive questions, the way he'd touched me in that hallway. What choice do we have? None. The word was bitter. We have no choice at all. The estate appeared through morning fog like something from a Gothic novel. Stone villa surrounded by vineyards, beautiful and isolated, exactly as Luca had warned. Nico waited on the steps, arms spread wide in welcome that felt like a threat. Fratelli! Welcome! He embraced Luca, then turned to me with that dangerous smile. And my lovely sister. I've prepared everything for your comfort. The villa was stunning, exposed beams, marble floors, art worth fortunes. But I noticed the cameras in every corner, the guards positioned at strategic points, the way every window faced inward toward the courtyard rather than offering escape routes. That evening, Nico gathered us in the dining room. Candles flickered on a table set for 3, wine flowed freely. He was charming, attentive, playing the gracious host while his eyes never stopped calculating. I have a game, he announced over dessert. To celebrate getting to know each other better, he produced 2 notepads and pens, simple questions about each other. You write your answers separately, then reveal them. Real couples should match perfectly, yes? Luca's hand found mine under the table. 3 squeezes. Our signal. Follow my lead. First question. Nico smiled. What side of the bed does Luca sleep on? Easy. We'd rehearsed this. I wrote right at the same moment Luca did. We matched. Good. Next. What's Luca's favorite breakfast? Espresso. Plain. Both our papers said the same. Nico's smile tightened. Interesting. Let's try something more intimate. Maya, what does Luca do when he can't sleep? I hesitated. We hadn't covered this. Luca's pen moved across his paper with confidence, but I had no idea what he was writing. I thought of him at 4 a.m. on the balcony after the merger fell apart, and wrote, goes to the balcony and thinks. We revealed our papers simultaneously. They matched. Nico's expression flickered with something dark. Lucky guess. One more. What's Luca's greatest fear? The question hung heavy. Luca stared at his blank paper for a long moment, then wrote something and folded it. I thought of everything I'd learned, his scars, his loneliness, the way he'd looked when he asked me not to leave. I wrote, being alone. When we revealed our answers, Nico went perfectly still. Both papers read the same thing. Well, he said quietly, and something dangerous entered his voice. Perhaps I've underestimated you both. That night, I awoke to darkness so complete it felt solid. The power had been cut, and in that blackness I heard my door open. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, approaching my bed. I screamed. Hands grabbed my shoulders, and I fought blindly, terror overriding thought, Maya. It's me! Luca's voice cut through my panic. Light flooded the room. He stood beside my bed, fully dressed, his eyes wild. Behind him, my door stood open, and I saw the chair positioned just outside in the hallway, a blanket draped over it. You were sleeping there? My voice shook. Every night since we arrived. He sat on the edge of my bed, his hands still on my shoulders. He's trying to separate us. To prove you'll run to me instead of handling threats yourself. That's what wives do. They need their husbands. My heart hammered against my ribs. Then teach me what? Teach me how to be yours so convincingly that even Nico believes it. I met his eyes. Teach me how to need you the way real wives do. Luca's expression transformed into something raw and desperate. What if I'm not pretending anymore? The confession hung between us like a held breath, and somewhere in the darkness of Nico's estate, I heard footsteps retreating. Whoever had cut the power, satisfied they'd proven something. But they'd proven the wrong thing entirely. Morning came with a knock on my door. Not Luca, he'd already left for a business call Nico had arranged. A maid handed me a note written in elegant script. Join me for a vineyard tour. Just us. Time we talked honestly. And I found Luca in the study, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. When he saw the note, his jaw tightened, but he nodded once. Permission. We both knew refusing would look suspicious. Nico waited by a vintage car dressed casually in a way that made him look younger, less dangerous. Leave your phone, he said as I approached. No signal in the vineyards anyway. Just us and honest conversation. The vines stretched endlessly, heavy with grapes under autumn sun. Nico drove slowly, speaking about wine and weather, and nothing that mattered. Then, miles from the villa, he stopped the car. Let's walk. The grapes formed walls around us, creating intimate corridors where sound died quickly. Nico's charm had shifted to something more genuine, more dangerous. I need to apologize, he said. For the restaurant, for testing you. He gestured vaguely. All of it. Why now? Because I've been watching you both, and I think I've been wrong. He plucked a grape, turning it between his fingers. You care about him. Really care. I can see it. Hope fluttered dangerously in my chest. Then you'll leave us alone? Not exactly. He moved closer. See, here's what I've realized. My brother doesn't know how to love people, Maya. He only knows how to own them. To control them. His voice dropped, intimate and poisonous. I've watched women fall for him before. Watched him use them until they served their purpose, then discard them like they were nothing. That's not. It is. Nico's hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm. He's my brother, and I love him, but I also know him. He's been alone so long because anyone who gets close eventually realizes that loving Luca means suffocating, means being possessed, not cherished. Each word landed like a carefully aimed strike because part of me feared they were true. After this merger fails completely, and it will fail, he'll blame you, Nico continued. He'll convince himself you weren't worth losing everything for, and then you'll be discarded with a check and memories of pretending to be wanted. His thumb traced my pulse point. Is that really what you want? What I want isn't your concern, but it could be. He stepped closer, his free hand coming up to cup my face. I could give you everything he promises, but never delivers. Freedom instead of a cage. Partnership instead of ownership. Real affection instead of contractual obligation. His mouth descended toward mine, and I understood with crystal clarity. This wasn't seduction. This was the final test. Proof that I'd take an exit when offered. Proof that I'd betray Luca when given the chance. My hand cracked across his face hard enough to echo through the vines. I'm not interested in exits, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. And I'm definitely not interested in you. Nico's charming mask shattered. His hand shot out, gripping my jaw with bruising force. Then you're a fool, he hissed, because this marriage is fake, and when Luca's done using you, you'll have nothing but money and memories of pretending to be wanted. The words cut deeper than they should because he'd found my deepest fear and weaponized it. At least I'll have memories, I whispered. What will you have? The satisfaction of destroying your brother's happiness because you're too bitter to find your own. He released me with a shove. Get in the car. The drive back was silent. Tension so thick it felt suffocating. When we reached the villa, I fled to my room, locked the door, and finally let myself break. I was crying into my pillow when the door burst open, Luca wild-eyed, taking in my tears with an expression that shifted from fear to murderous rage. What did he do? His voice was deadly quiet. Nothing. The words wouldn't come. He told me things about you. About women I don't care what he told you. Luca crossed to me, his hands framing my face with desperate gentleness. I don't care about the merger, the investors, my father's approval. None of it matters, but we're leaving. Now. He pulled me to my feet. Pack nothing. We're getting out of here before I kill him. Luca, he made you cry. His thumb wiped away tears with shaking fingers. He put his hands on you. He made you doubt us. And I won't. I can't. His control cracked. Please, Maya, let me take you home. Home. He'd called the penthouse home. Called it ours. I nodded and he pulled me against his chest, his heart racing beneath my ear. Behind us, I heard Nico's voice from the hallway, calling Luca's name with false concern. Luca's arms tightened around me. 3 more weeks, he murmured against my hair. That's all that's left on the contract, but I'm not counting anymore. Are you? I shook my head, breathing him in bergamot and safety, and something that felt terrifyingly like love. Good, he whispered. Neither am I. We drove back to the city in silence. Luca's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his jaw set like stone. When we reached the penthouse, he went straight to the bar, but this time he didn't drink. He just stood there, staring at the bottle like it held answers. The merger is officially dead, he said finally. Ferretti called this morning. They've partnered with the Rossi family instead. I'm sorry. Don't be. He set the bottle down with careful precision. My father called after. He's removing me from the family business. Says I've proven I'm not fit to lead, that I let emotion compromise judgment. A bitter laugh. He's not wrong, Luca, and Nico's been busy. He's spreading rumors that our marriage is contractual. Nothing he can prove, but enough to plant doubt. He finally turned to face me. Everyone I've worked with for 5 years now questions whether I'm trustworthy, whether I'm stable, whether I'm worth doing business with. The weight of what I'd cost him settled like lead in my stomach. You should terminate the contract. Cut your losses before. Stop. He crossed to me in 3 strides. Stop offering to leave like it's the solution. Like losing you wouldn't be the worst loss of all, but you've lost everything else. I haven't lost anything that matters. His hands found my face, tilting it up to meet his desperate gaze. Don't you understand yet? The merger was never about business. What? He released me, moving to the window. My father built an empire on violence and fear. I watched it consume him, consume my mother before she died, consume everyone who got close. When I turned 30, I told him I wanted out, wanted to build something clean, something legitimate. He laughed. Luca's voice hardened. Said men like us don't get normal lives. Don't get love or peace or anything beyond the family. Understanding began to dawn. The merger was supposed to prove him wrong. Show him I could be successful outside the family business. That I could build relationships based on trust instead of fear. He laughed bitterly. The investors wanted a married man? Fine, I'd give them one. I'd show my father I could have everything he said was impossible. So you hired me. I hired you because you were desperate enough to say yes. Because you needed money, and I needed proof that I could. He stopped. But then something happened. My heart hammered. What? He'd turned, and his expression was raw. You in my kitchen at 2 a.m. making tea because you couldn't sleep. You memorizing my scars like they mattered. You standing up to Nico when you were terrified. You crying over Italian poetry and books I didn't know I owned. His voice cracked. Somewhere between the contract and tonight, this stopped being about proving my father wrong. It started being about not losing you. Tears burned my eyes. You're not losing me, aren't I? He moved closer. In 2 weeks, the contract expires. You'll take your money and disappear into a life that doesn't include danger and dysfunction, and a man who's destroyed everything trying to keep you. What if I don't want that life? Maya, what if I want this one? I closed the distance between us. The one with you. The one where we stop pretending this is temporary. His hands shook as they framed my face. I'm not good at this. At loving people. At being what someone needs instead of what they fear. Then we'll learn together. I placed my hands over his. Because somewhere between your scars and tonight, I stopped pretending too. This is real for me, Luca. You're real for me. The kiss was different from anything before, not performance, not practice, but confession. His hands tangled in my hair, mine gripped his shirt, and we held on to each other like we were drowning and had finally found solid ground. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, he whispered. I don't know when it happened or how to do it right, but I love you. I love you too. The words felt like freedom, and we have 2 weeks to figure out how to make this real. 2 weeks isn't enough then. Let's make it forever. His laugh was shaky, relieved, almost hopeful. Forever sounds, the elevator chimed. We sprang apart as Nico stepped into the penthouse, and the expression on his face told me everything. He'd been listening. He knew we were real. And he was about to use it to destroy us both. Nico carried a leather folder like a weapon. His smile was sharp, victorious, the expression of someone who'd finally won a game he'd been playing alone. Don't let me interrupt, he said, moving to the bar and pouring himself scotch. That was quite the confession. Very touching. Luca stepped in front of me instinctively. Get out. In a moment. Nico opened the folder, spreading papers across the coffee table with deliberate precision. But first, I thought you'd want to see what I've compiled. Call it a brother's concern. I moved closer, dread pooling in my stomach. The papers were thorough, damning. Copies of my eviction notice dated 3 weeks before our marriage. Financial records showing my debt. A testimony from my former landlord describing my desperation. Bank statements proving the $50,000 deposit that appeared in my account the day after I met Luca. Impressive research, Luca said coldly. I'm thorough, like you. Nico sipped his drink. But the best part is this. He produced a photograph of me entering Luca's office building the day before our wedding. Time-stamped. Documented. Your secretary confirmed you met that day. Confirmed she'd never seen Maya before. Confirmed Luca asked her to prepare contract materials. My legs went weak. This was it. The proof that destroyed everything. So here's my offer, Fratello. Nico leaned back, savoring his victory. Admit the marriage is contractual. Let me present this evidence to father with your confession. I'll position it as a business arrangement gone wrong. Desperate but understandable. You walk away from the family business with dignity intact, and if I refuse, then I go public. Destroy what's left of your reputation and hers. She'll be labeled a gold digger. You'll be the unstable son who faked a marriage to manipulate investors. Nico's smile widened. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. I have reporters on standby. Luca's hands clenched into fists. I watched him calculate angles, search for exits that didn't exist. We were trapped, and Nico knew it. Show him, I heard myself say. Both men turned to stare at me. What? Lucas's voice was sharp with confusion. Show him the contract. I moved to Luca's side, my heart racing but my voice steady. He's gone to all this trouble. Deserves to see what he's been searching for. Maya, Luca started, but I caught his hand, squeezed 3 times. Trust me. His eyes searched mine, then he moved to his desk and withdrew the contract from a locked drawer. He handed it to Nico, whose expression shifted to pure triumph as he unfolded the pages. I watched Nico scan the terms, saw the moment he found the date at the top, saw confusion flicker across his features. This is dated March 15th, he said slowly. Yes, I agreed. But you were married March 1st. He looked between us. The wedding license is dated 2 weeks before the contract. I finished. Turns out we got married first. The contract came later. Nico's face cycled through emotions, confusion, disbelief, rage. That's impossible. You met for the first time. We met at a charity gala 7 months ago, Luca said, his voice gaining strength as he understood my play. You checked the wrong event. The one where Maya was serving? That was our second meeting. I'd already fallen for her months before. The secretary said she'd never seen Maya in the office, I interrupted. Because we met outside of work. Because Luca kept our relationship private to protect me from exactly this kind of scrutiny. The lie was perfect. Impossible to disprove without access to records that didn't exist because the timeline we'd created left no gaps. No holes, just a wedding that preceded a contract by 2 weeks. You're lying, Nico said, but doubt crept into his voice. Am I? Luca moved to stand beside me, his arms sliding around my waist. Or have you been testing a real marriage this entire time? Wasting weeks trying to prove something that was never fake to begin with. Nico stared at the contract like it had betrayed him. The money was a loan to help Maya with her father's medical debts, Luca said smoothly. Documented in the contract because I believe in clear terms even with family. But the marriage? That was already real. I watched Nico's perfect trap collapse around him. All his evidence, all his research, all his carefully compiled proof worthless against a timeline that couldn't be challenged. This isn't over, Nico said finally, gathering his papers with shaking hands. Yes, Luca's voice was quiet but absolute. It is. When Nico was gone, silence pressed down like a physical weight. Then Luca turned to me, his expression caught between awe and terror. That was either brilliant or insane. Why not both? My voice shook with adrenaline and relief. You just trapped us, he said. Now we can't end this without proving Nico right. We're bound together, really bound by a lie that has to become truth. I met his eyes. I know, Maya. I know what I did, Luca. I took his hands in mine. And I'd do it again. Because maybe I'm tired of exits. Maybe I want to be trapped with you. His control finally broke. He kissed me like I'd saved his life, like I'd given him something he'd stopped believing he could have. Forever, he whispered against my lips. Forever, I promised. And this time, it wasn't a lie at all. 6 weeks passed like a held breath finally released. The contract sat in Luca's desk drawer, untouched. The expiration date came and went without mention. My bank account still held the $100,000 I'd never spent, like touching it would make everything disappear. We existed in strange limbo-legally married, living together, but neither of us willing to name what we'd become. The performance had dissolved into something neither could define, something that felt too fragile to examine too closely. Then one morning, I awoke to find Luca standing at the window in the pre-dawn light, still dressed from the night before. He hadn't slept. Again, what's wrong? I asked. He didn't turn. The contract expired yesterday. My heart stuttered. I know. You haven't left? No, why not? He finally faced me, and his expression was raw. You're free, Maya. Completely free. You have your money. You have no legal obligation to stay. So why are you still here? The question hung between us like a test I hadn't studied for. I could give him easy answers. Comfort, security, fear of being alone. All would be partially true. Instead, I chose honesty. Because leaving would feel like losing something I didn't know I needed until I had it. What's that? Yeah, I stood moving toward him. Not the man in the contract. Not the mafia heir or the business owner or the brother trying to prove something to his father. Just you. The man who taught me his scars, who defended me when it cost him everything, who learned to be gentle because I needed him to be. His hands shook as they reached for me. I don't know how to do this without terms and conditions, without contracts and clear expectations. Then let me make it simple. I took his hands in mine, asked me to stay, not because of an arrangement, not because of Nico, or your father, or proving anything to anyone. Ask me because you want me. The words seemed to break something in him. I'm terrified, he whispered, of wanting you this much, of needing you, of what happens if you realize I'm not worth staying for. You're worth it. I brought his damaged knuckles to my lips. You've always been worth it, even when you couldn't see it yourself. His control shattered completely. "Stay," he said, his voice breaking. "Please. Not as my contract wife. As my real one. Wake up next to me. Fight with me. Build something with me that isn't fake or temporary or designed to end." His forehead dropped to mine. "Stay because you love me. Because I love you so much, it terrifies me. Because I don't know how to be without you anymore." Yes, the word was easy. Natural, right? Yes to all of it. When he kissed me, it tasted like promises and beginnings and everything we'd pretended to be finally becoming real. 1 year later, the restaurant was the same one where everything had fallen apart. Full circle, Luca had called it when he made the reservation. A chance to reclaim what Nico had tried to destroy. We sat at the same table, but everything was different. The merger was gone, but Luca had built something better. A legitimate business that bore his name, not his father's. The family had fractured, then slowly healed in jagged ways that would never be perfect but were somehow enough. And Nico sat across from us, his charming mask finally retired, replaced with something almost like respect. "Happy anniversary," he said, raising his glass. 1 year of what are we calling this? Real marriage? Just marriage, Luca corrected, his hand finding mine on the table. No qualifiers needed. Nico's smile was genuine this time. "I have to admit, I was wrong about you, Maya. I thought you were using him. Turns out you saved him instead." "We saved each other," I said quietly. Luca's thumb traced the wedding band that had replaced the platinum ring simpler, chosen together, worn by both of us now. His other hand settled on my stomach, where our first child grew, still secret, still too new to share. But when his eyes met mine, I saw he knew. Saw the question, and the awe, and the terror of becoming something more. "Forever?" he whispered, the same question he'd asked a year ago. "Forever," I promised, and squeezed his hand 3 times. "I love you. I choose you. I'm never leaving." Under the table he squeezed back 4 times. "I love you. I need you. You're mine. I'm yours." The contract was framed on our penthouse wall now, reminder that sometimes the best real things start with beautiful lies. That sometimes you have to pretend to be loved before you can believe you're worthy of it. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the person you're pretending with stops pretending too. Nico ordered champagne, and as the bubbles caught the light, I thought of pink eviction notices, and desperate choices, and a man who'd offered me money when what I really needed was someone to teach me I was worth saving. "To new beginnings," Nico toasted. "To real ones," Luca corrected, his eyes never leaving mine. We drank to that, to marriages that start fake and become real, to brothers who learn to forgive, to love that grows in the spaces between contracts and truth. And as Lucas's hand tightened on mine, I realized the most important thing the contract had taught us. Sometimes you have to sign away your life to discover what living actually means.